So the next lesson about the Highland Dirk normally should be the first close quarter combat technique, but because of all the lockdown, corona, quarantine thing, of course close quarter combat is not the best idea at the moment. And so I decided to start a little project on the Dirk, basing on a quote by Archibald MacGregor from his lecture on the art of defense from 1791. In this quote he is talking about the use of the Dirk a little bit, and he's also mentioning that the Highlanders were, as he say, dexterous marksmen by throwing the Dirk, so using the Dirk as a throwing knife. Maybe the Dirk is in its proportions not the perfect throwing knife. However, I think it's possible to throw most types of knives if you are trained enough. And if we follow Archibald MacGregor's quote, then if we say they were dexterous marksmen, so we can assume they were kind of experts in knife throwing. And if the Highland Dirk was their preferred sidearms, their preferred all-day dagger, then we might trust Archibald MacGregor and say, okay, the Highlanders were able to throw the Dirk in its various shapes with some effect. And as MacGregor mentions, also at some distance. So I thought, why not give it a shot? How better to train the Dirk while keeping distance and being, doing all the social distancing and stuff, and practice some knife throwing. So yeah, I'm not an experienced knife thrower. Of course, occasionally I use any knife and just throw it on the ground or throw it at some target. When I was a kid and I was with Pathfinders, the Boy Scouts, then of course we used our knives and we're doing some knife throwing, or at home, when you have in the 1990s we were buying some cheap throwing knives and we're just going for it and trying it out. But that said, I don't have any real experience with knife throwing. These days knife throwing, and especially axe throwing, has become, or hatchet throwing has become kind of very nice pastime, so like the Viking darts of our modern days. I was thinking, okay, let's give it a shot, but of course I don't want to use my not very expensive but still too nice Dirk reproduction I have from Windlers, and especially not a very, very nice authentic reproduction of a Highland Dirk. So I was thinking about what can I use which has the right proportions, or nearly the right proportions, weight and balance to a historical accurate Dirk, and which can I throw without being too worried about damaging it. So I purchased this. I was very lucky. It was an eBay auction with some different weapons made by United Cutlery. They have all these tactical zombie apocalypse weapons. And it was, an auction with many different machetes and daggers in it. And I got all them together in one bundle, very, very cheap. I was very lucky. And I sold the rest of the stuff, and because I just wanted to have this. This is a so-called M48 Highland Dirk. It's kind of a tactical variation, or, a tactical knife being inspired by real Highland Dirks. Of course, the proportions, the material and everything are not correct. If we compare it to our Windlers reproduction, which is also not highly accurate, but much more accurate than this one, it's a bit heavier, much shorter, so I would not take it as a serious Highland Dirk for combat, because I want to have my blade sticking out over the elbow a little bit for protection. The grip, the handle is roughly in the shape of a Dirk, but it's a little bit too long, therefore the blade is too short. But okay, it's inspired by a Highland Dirk, it's not an authentic Highland Dirk, and they don't sell it as an authentic Highland Dirk. But I think it's, for my purpose, it's quite a good knife, because first of all, it was quite inexpensive. Even if you purchase it for the full price as a new item and not as a used from an eBay auction, it still is affordable. It is quite robust, you can say this at least. I mean, it has a stainless steel, blackened, tactical looking blade with a deep fuller, a very, very thick edge, okay, a very, very thick back edge, a very big point. Everything is made of, the grip is made of some modern plastic, rubber, whatever material. We have steel fittings here and a very robust steel pommel. So for you know what I want to do, I mean it is a good knife for itself if you want to have a solid fighting, maybe even a little bit bushcrafting you can do with it. I don't know, but I think it is a massive, robust knife. You can say this, and it has kind of the right proportions to a historical Dirk. So for my purpose to learn throwing the Dirk, this is quite the right tool, because I don't have to be afraid to miss throw a lot of times and get a beautiful wooden handle damage, or the pommel flying off or whatever. So this thing is robust, and I already did some practice throwing. I had like 3 very lucky throws out of 20 very horrible throws. But however, it was a first test if this thing will survive, and it survived. So I think I can give this a hard throwing, and it will forgive me any of my rookie mistakes. Of course, I know there are a lot of knife throwing, axe throwing experts out there who would tell me that this is not a very good knife to start with. Maybe, I don't know. However, it is a knife I want to start with because it's as close as possible to the Highland Dirk and still robust, and I don't have to be afraid to damage it. So why is throwing the Dirk anyway? Alright, I mean, if you only have your Dirk and you throw it and you miss, or your hit is not as fatal as you wanted, then you of course are unarmed. So maybe throwing the Dirk as your only weapon in a combat situation might not be a good idea. If you are that good at knife throwing that like every throw is a solid hit and you only have one opponent, so maybe it is a good idea. However, I see it more in the context of just for fun, and of course experimenting with a quote by Archibald MacGregor. In a combat situation, I would say I would rather prefer to only do it as like a missile weapon when I have a main weapon in my right hand. Take the classic combination of broadsword and Dirk in the left hand, then I would say it's maybe a good idea when you are fighting that you use your Dirk to throw, not like this. Then maybe it is a good idea at some point, if you want to distract or confuse your opponent, that you throw your Dirk, because you still have your main weapon. Or maybe you have, like 2 opponents or 3 opponents, and you have to defend yourself with your broadsword and your Dirk. Then you maybe throw your Dirk at one guy, he is distracted, or you even kill him or injure him, and then you go for the broadsword and use it as the main weapon. We already tried this out, several times during our sparring sessions when we have the broadsword or other weapons and have the Dirk or another small weapon in our left hand. course, now comes the question about throwing techniques. Normally I hold my dirk, as we already talked about, in this position and fight with my broadsword, and then occasionally the dirk comes out, or I use it as emergency, parry device. If I want to throw it, of course, in this kind of dagger and knife grip, maybe I could throw it with an underhand throw, okay? Maybe you will laugh now about me being a fool, but I already saw such underhand throws. I don't know if it has enough force, but this might be one possibility. Please let me know in the comments if you think otherwise, or if you have a better idea. However, of course, I can change the grip of my dirk quite easy into a knife grip, which is not good to parry, as we already talked about, because this is not a parry dagger and you might get your hand damaged. But you can, fight with your sword and then sneakily change your grip and then throw it into the face of your opponent. This is also a possibility. I will do some research on different throwing techniques, especially with bigger knives. Some people already pointed out to me on Facebook 2 or 3 books which are sound quite interesting to learn more about throwing. I would especially like to have something about throwing bigger knives, and maybe with some historical context. So one book was pointed out to me about the Bowie knife, where something with throwing the Bowie knife into it. I have to take a deeper look into that. So if I have my weapon, my main weapon, and I throw my dirk into the face of my opponent, it's not quite a bad idea, because maybe I don't have a solid hit, but at least it will distract him. At least it will give me the chance to find that opening with my main weapon. And as I said before, in various sparring situations, we were just having our training dirks and throwing it not too hard, but with some intention into the face of our opponent from a regular sword distance, from a regular sword fighting measure, or even from a little bit further away. And it worked. It was okay. It distracted the opponent. It doesn't work. It does not work every time, but it works quite often. So, a long story short, I will try this out using this kind of dirk. Maybe if I'm good enough and I have enough solid hits with this one, I will give it a go and we'll try out this one. But first of all, let's go out in the garden, in the green, and train throwing a little bit with a knife. That was not too bad, I think. What I did though was first I tried out a typical knife grip, okay, a handle grip. So you throw the knife holding the handle. From what I've read, this was, at least in the book I've read, it was suggested to use this with bigger knives, and with knives which are only sharp on one side, so no daggers, but more like a knife, like an all-day knife, and not a specific throwing dagger or throwing knife. However, following some suggestions also on Facebook and on YouTube,
also with bigger knives like Bowie knives. I used the throw by holding the dirk with a blade, so flat with a blade, not like this. Okay, this is too heavy, I think. Okay, but with a flat. Okay, this is also something I've read in the knife throwing book I studied before I started this project. So I think it went not bad. It was not that a great distance. It was like 2 meters, 2.5 meters to 3 meters, and yeah, still a lot to do. Still a lot of practice necessary to throw the dirk every time with great success. But I think I keep getting better and better the more often I train. Like everything, like in swordsmanship, practice is all. So yeah, I think it's not bad for a first experiment, and I would say the first thing is that I would prefer the blade holding grip, the flat grip, to throw the dirk. And as it was suggested, because dirks had way more shorter handles, like this modern inspiration example, they would be easier to be thrown from the blade, and I would agree to that. And for me, it was a better way to throw, to start throwing the dirk anyway.
Yeah, we'll keep you updated on the ongoing process. Maybe you are interested now to go out and do some knife throwing or hatchet throwing. Of course, always be safe. You know, keep in mind that you only throw it in a safe place, that you cannot hit anyone by accident, that no one is, you know, running around in your throwing line, and also especially that the weapon cannot bounce back and fly back into your chest or face or something. So safety first. This is only for historical information and only for educational purposes. So please don't throw knives at people, of course. But go outside, get a good target you can use, keep all safety in mind, read something about it, and, you know, give it a go, because even though if you don't hit at the beginning a lot of things solidly, it is great fun, and I just want to do more of it in future. And I, you know, will just occasionally keep you updated with some more videos on Highland dirk throwing. So stay tuned and be safe, stay healthy, stay strong, and see you in the next video.